Best there ever was. Best there is now. Best there ever will be.
Come on, Lambert. You got a good audience out here. You want to see some more?
Hi, I'm Joe Don Baker. That was me playing the Whammer in the movie The Natural. That character was based on Babe Ruth. You heard the Whammer described as the best there was, is, or ever will be. In real life, that describes Babe Ruth. In the next hour, we will look at his larger-than-life legacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bambino, the Sultan of Swat, Babe Ruth!
I don't think there's a bit of question that Babe Ruth was the greatest player that baseball ever had.
He had the most beautiful baseball swing that I've ever seen.
Well, I looked out at center field and I pointed. I said, I'm going to hit the next pitch ball right past the flagpole. I can't go on forever. Somebody's got to take my shoes and take my place. Fastball hit deep to right. This could be it. Way back there. Holy cow!
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
It was not a very easy thing for me, chasing that record.
Babe Ruth really, in a sense, invented the modern sports autograph.
The three most famous American names around the world were George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Babe Ruth.
I think he's bigger now than he was 50 years ago. I think he's going to be bigger 20 years from now than he is today.
He got tremendous height. It looked like it was going right up to heaven many times.
The guy won 20 games quite a few seasons in a row. Then he goes, hey, you know what? This is too easy. I'm going to go hit.
Outside the Lines, Babe Ruth's larger-than-life legacy is brought to you by AT&T. It's all within your reach.
I'm here at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Today, even 50 years after his death, Babe Ruth still has clout, the classic American hero. Ruth rose from life in an orphanage to reviving the national pastime. After the Black Sox scandal, which was the plot to fix the 1919 World Series, Ruth's epic home runs and towering personality sent baseball soaring into the roaring 20s and beyond. This program measures Ruth's broad impact. He did more than transform a game. He made sports and its icons essential parts of our culture. The grand, sweeping scope of sports as we know it, the color and charisma, the success and the inevitable excess, began essentially with Babe Ruth.
He revolutionized so many things about professional sports.
As Wade Hoyt once said, every ball player should, before he goes to bed at night, should include Babe Ruth in his prayers.
Ruth was the first national superstar, the man who gave us that category.
I think it's interesting that Jordan, at this moment in his career where we are coming to the measuring time, evokes comparison with Ruth.
It was gratifying, without a doubt. I mean, but it's hard to compare to someone you never really saw, you only heard about.
All of us should feel a great deal of thanks to what he did for all of us.
Ruth made the first big money. Today, no one is astonished when Michael Jordan is paid more for a single game than President Clinton makes in a year. Maybe that's because in 1930, with the country numbed by a depression, Ruth made a then remarkable $80,000, $5,000 more than President Herbert Hoover.
He gave, not only for baseball, but for other sports, people the opportunity to make a lot of money at doing something they love to do.
Ruth was the first athlete to cash in a big way on his mass appeal. Of course, commercial endorsements for athletes are now the norm. He wasn't the first to hawk products, but Ruth turned this artful pitching into big business.
Ruth endorsed everything. He didn't matter to him. He didn't even know what he was endorsing. Everything. He endorsed games, underwear, clothes, cigars, breakfast cereal.
Ruth had the first modern agent. Christy Walsh, Ruth's representative, presided over a diverse empire, from radio and book deals to barnstorming tours. At times, Ruth earned more off the field than on. Today, that happens, but back then, it was unheard of. With Walsh's guidance over 18 years, Ruth earned nearly $500,000. Ruth was also the first controversial athlete always in the spotlight. Today, it is easy to believe that our generation created rebellious stars with larger-than-life appetites. But long before Dennis Rodman, Ruth partied hard, ignored curfews, and almost pathologically defied authority. He, too, led the league in fines and suspensions.
A roisterer. He loved the after dark.
Well, he drank a lot.
He ate like 10 King Kongs.
He liked the ladies a lot.
He'd come out and stay out all night, come out and get him a hot dog and hit you 2 or 3 home runs.
And no man ever lived that could play the part of Babe Ruth off the ball field. That's a fact. He's a monster.
And the first truly international baseball hero. Huge, enormous, gargantuan. That was Ruth, here and abroad. In 1934, he was a star attraction of an all-star tour of Japan. Teammate Joe Cascarella remembers.
When he got up to leave off the bench, everyone rose like a wave and screamed their head off for Ruth, banzai, banzai.
2 years later, there was a pro league where none had existed. Sadaharu Oh, Japan's greatest slugger, acknowledges his country's debt.
Babe Ruth had come to attract more audience, and yes, he did completely change baseball in Japan.
In America today, an ocean away, we're still feeling the ripples.
A no-hitter by Hideo Nomo.
Ruth set many precedents, lifting the ceiling for athletes of all sports.
How do you explain Babe Ruth? I don't know. How do you explain Einstein? He's a postal clerk in Zurich, and he revolutionized the way we think in the 20th century.
Coming up next, Babe Ruth's one-man revolution, the home run.
It's the most difficult thing to do in sports today.
And a half a dozen opponents remember facing Ruth and his colossal clouts.
You see him on the back roads, you see him on the street. Let me tell you, mister, the sure looks sweet. The sleek and the smooth and rugged to boot. They're a whole lot of style and they're fun to drive too.
When you're sitting up high in an Explorer, you'll like the way things look, especially your payments, because Explorer comes with less than 1% APR.
They're built for tough and that's a mighty strong stuff. When the road gets rough, you gotta drive for tough.
Just see your Southern Ford dealer today.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bambino, the Sultan of Swat, Babe Ruth.
To hit a round ball with a round bat squarely to go a long way is the most difficult thing to do in sports today.
Up into the night, into the upper tank. Are you kidding me?
Golf, you know you can hit a 300-yard drive, right? Baseball, you don't know if you're going to hit a home run. You can go a week, a month without hitting a home run.
He's fun to watch. The modern-day Babe Ruth.
I follow him, sure, because he don't hit just ordinary home runs. He hit home runs that that even Babe Ruth can't hit.
I mean, Ruthian. I mean, it's just probably the best legacy in the game.
One little-known Ruth legacy is the foul pole. It was invented largely for him, to gauge his towering shots. Before Ruth, baseball was a base-to-base enterprise, a small inside game where bunting and the hit and run loomed largest.
He changed it from being a pitcher's league where they play 1-0 ball games. He come up with the home run.
Everybody tried to become home run hitters, even 250 hitters. Everybody got home run minded. Everybody wanted to hit home runs like Ruth.
In 1920, his first season with the Yankees, Babe Ruth hit 54 home runs, nearly doubling his major league record. That was more than any of the American League's 7 other teams. It was the best offensive season in baseball history. The next season, 1921, Ruth topped himself, hitting 59 home runs. America, desperately wanting to believe in baseball again after the Black Sox scandal, couldn't take its eyes off him.
Baseball was losing its credibility, or would have lost its credibility, and along came the Bambino.
Here's America, emerging as a world power, and what greater metaphor in the 20s, right after World War I, than the big bomb, the home run.
Well, I think his home runs really changed everything around for baseball. The fans really took to him. They were crazy about the Babe.
We hit bigger home runs, longer home runs, greater home runs. He was a symbol of this explosive, almost a sexual thing, just explosive, big.
Ruth inspired, almost created, the next generation of sluggers. In a sense, Ruth's signature was all over the popular 1950s show, Home Run Derby, where players like Aaron, Mantle, Mays, and Killebrew competed in a home run hitting contest.
Good luck, Willie. She's going into orbit. Gone over the left field wall. This may be it. Look out. So long until tomorrow.
Today, home runs continue to excite.
Oh, this one is a P. Back. Gone.
It's almost as if whenever anybody hits a home run today, they should pay Babe Ruth a royalty. It's like he invented it.
So one of the bats that Babe Ruth actually used. It's a museum piece, so you have to wear gloves. You can almost feel the power. The men who saw him wield this bat will never forget.
Quick wrist, very quick wrist. He had that uppercut swing.
The Detroit Tigers' Eldon Alker had the dangerous pleasure of pitching to Babe Ruth.
When Ruth took a cut, he really took a cut out. If he missed it, he went all the way around.
Charles Devins was Ruth's teammate on the Yankees. He pitched to him often in batting practice.
He didn't have to hit the ball so hard because he was perfectly coordinated, his swing, baseball swing. Wonderful swing.
Indians pitcher Mel Harder faced Ruth for 7 seasons, allowing him 3 home runs.
I knew as soon as he swung that bat, they were gone. And because when he hit a ball, it was like a golf ball going out.
Another Cleveland pitcher, Willis Hudlin, allowed Ruth 5 home runs in 9 seasons.
Every time you face him, the butterflies will start flopping around in his tummy. You think you'd get over it, but you don't.
Tigers infielder Billy Rogal played against Ruth for 8 seasons.
There's nobody who could hit a ball like Babe Ruth. I don't care who he is.
Some of baseball's greatest hits were Babe Ruth home runs. With 3 games left in 1927, Ruth hit his 59th of the season, tying the record he had set 6 years earlier. The Washington Senators' Paul Hopkins allowed that 59th homer a grand slam.
Rule, the catcher, came out to me and said, "You know who's batting next?" And then he told me, and I said, "Sure." I said, "Well, throw this guy nothing but curveballs," which I did. Well, I kept it up, the curveball, and finally he popped one out there in right field.
Number 60, a shot down the right field line, came the next day against Hopkins' roommate, Tom Zachary.
I'm proud of that bat because it represents the bat I hit my 60 home runs with.
2 years later, another milestone, number 500 off of Cleveland's Hudlin.
And I threw him my best pitch, which was a sinker ball, and he hit it clear over the fence. Gone. I guess it's still going.
The most disputed moment in Major League history came in the 1932 World Series. Did Ruth point toward the center field fence and call his home run? Or was he merely motioning to the Cubs dugout or pitcher Charlie Root? Only 2 players from the series survived today, and they disagree. Yankees shortstop Frank Rossetti says Ruth did not call the shot. Charlie Devins says he did.
He definitely pointed to center field, and the next ball pitched to him, he hit out of the ballpark in center field. There's no question about that.
Hitting a home run in Chicago that time. The Lord was with me when I called the shots.
I mean, the story itself and the myth of it, the fact that you and I can, 70 years or so later, wonder if it did or did not happen, reflects on the fact that he became as much myth as man.
In 1935, then with the Boston Braves, 5 days before his last game, Ruth had one last unforgettable performance. He had already hit 2 homers when he came up in the 7th inning against Pittsburgh's Guy Bush. Number 714 went over the Forbes Field roof in right field.
First ball that ever been knocked out of the ballpark. So he come around, and instead of going to his visitor's bench, he come running around and came right into our dugout. And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, boys, that last one felt good.
When we return, Ruth's legacy lives on in our language.
An indefinable standard of superiority to which everyone aspired. I mean, the Babe Ruth of water skiing.
There's a Babe Ruth of harness racing. There's a Babe Ruth of rodeo riders.
The Babe Ruth of oil painting. The Babe Ruth of opera singing.
And how the name Babe Ruth played a part in World War II.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Had enough?
Let's go.
Anything you can be, I can be greater.
Ready, stop.
Sooner or later, I'm greater than you.
I'm not stopping.
I'm not stopping.
I'm not stopping.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
Any questions here? Any questions here? Let's get it on.
Jock Rock 2000, the greatest sports compilation ever. Jock Rock 2000 slams you with the hottest new music. The action is unstoppable. Jock Rock 2000 from ESPN and Tommy Boy. In stores now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bambino, the Sultan of SWAT, Babe Ruth.
Behemoth of Biff, Big Bambino, Caliph of Clout, Colossus of Club, Colossus of Sport, Goliath of the Grand Slam, King of Clout, King of SWAT, Prince of Pounders, Slambino, Sultan of SWAT, and Wizard of Whack.
The nickname Bambino obviously wasn't enough. Sports writers of the day competed to find new labels to capture the magnitude of the man. Today, that magnitude is reflected in our language.
Things that are beyond the scope of our imagination are sometimes called Ruthian.
Ruthian equals excess, the nth degree, the most.
It's a comparative adjective now, Ruthian.
I looked in every single dictionary, none of which had the word Ruthian, either small or capital R. So I don't know whether it's a part of the language or not. Everybody uses it, but it's not in any dictionary.
Neither is a noun for which there may be no synonym. The noun, Babe Ruth.
An indefinable standard of superiority to which everyone aspired. I mean, the Babe Ruth of water skiing, the Babe Ruth of oil painting.
There's a Babe Ruth of harness racing. There's a Babe Ruth of rodeo riders.
The Babe Ruth of opera singing.
In fact, the New York Times touted Enrico Caruso as the Babe Ruth of tenors. And upon his release from prison, Willie Sutton was declared the Babe Ruth of bank robbers by Time magazine.
In many ways, John Dingell is the Babe Ruth of this Congress.
And they used to call me the Babe Ruth of basketball.
For George Mikan, it was flattering. In every walk of life, it is high praise, except on a diamond. There, when you are compared to Babe Ruth, it's often because you're not.
It became part of the language, you know. What are you trying to be, Babe Ruth? Even today, around ball players, they'll say, throw this guy strikes. He's not Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth not only became a term to signify the best in his specific field. During World War II, Babe Ruth symbolized an entire nation.
One of the battle cries of the Japanese when they were facing our Marine soldiers in the South Pacific, they would yell, "To hell with Babe Ruth."
Across the Atlantic, in the Battle of the Bulge, when German spies infiltrated American perimeters, Babe Ruth became a means of identification at security checkpoints.
Everybody had to go through these checkpoints, myself included, generals and everybody else, and they ask you these questions. Where's Hollywood? Who's Little Abner? Then, who's Babe Ruth?
They would say to him, what do you think the Babe will do this year? See? The guy doesn't know that the Babe has been out of baseball for 6, 7 years. He's dead, see?
Not all of Ruth's influence on the language is obvious. Take the expression, out in left field.
The kids were in the know when they would go to the bleachers in the afternoon. They'd buy a ticket and they'd sit in right field because they'd be right by Ruth, and Ruth loved kids and kids loved Ruth. So a kid that bought a bleacher ticket in the left field was out in left field, literally out of it.
In 1961, a broken Babe Ruth record affected the language. Roger Maris hit 61 homers, but the season was 8 games longer than when Ruth hit 60. Purists like Commissioner Fort Frick, a longtime friend of the late Ruth, played up the difference.
I don't think Frick ever said asterisk, but someone else did, and that became it. Entered the American language with an asterisk, meaning not quite legitimate.
And what about the home run? Ruth made that feat so popular that the term could no longer stay in the ballpark. Home runs are everywhere.
It's as big a home run as writing a hit record or becoming a star.
In private life, he hit a home run. He did something great, right?
That would be a home run in my view.
It's a clean, clear American metaphor for success, immediate success.
Baseball imagery is scattered throughout American English. We go for the fences. We get thrown a curve. We strike out. Most expressions aren't linked directly to Ruth, but there may be an indirect link in President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who popularized baseball metaphors in his fireside chats.
The cerebral, Harvard-educated Franklin D. Roosevelt was infatuated with Ruth. You couldn't prove this like you would a scientific thing, but I think there's a line between Roosevelt's fascination with Ruth, Roosevelt's fascination with baseball, and then the fact that that language started to move out of baseball into daily life.
And not all of Ruth's influence was on the written or spoken language. There was that day in 1932 when he inspired body language.
If you're playing golf or you're doing something and you get up there and you're really frustrated, I think you can point a finger out there as if you're pointing to center field or the flagpole, and everybody will crack up.
Coming up next, the somber side of Ruth's storied career.
It seemed like almost everybody got the chance to manage except Daddy.
His one unfulfilled desire, to be a major league manager.
Driver, we've heard a lot about you. You any good? Get in.
Many sport utility vehicles feature a body that's held to a frame by just 10 bolts. The body and frame of the Infiniti QX4 is actually one solid structure held together by over 4,200 precision welds. So if you ever wonder why the QX4 drives so solid, because it is so solid.
Outside the Lines, Babe Ruth's larger-than-life legacy is brought to you by AT&T. It's all within your reach.
Not only in America, but all over the world, a very Merry Christmas.
Though Babe Ruth continued to make public appearances, the combination of his failing health and inability to land a managing job caused his outlook to grow dimmer.
He had very many sad days, very many. He was a very unhappy man in his last days.
According to his late daughter, Ruth's despair brought him to the brink of suicide. She said that her father had to be talked back from the ledge of the family's 15th floor New York apartment.
To see a man that was so full of life, and so to sort of kind of give up, it was very sad.
On April 27, 1947, he struggled to appear for Babe Ruth Day, celebrated throughout baseball. The next year, on June 13th, Babe's uniform was retired in silver anniversary festivities for Yankee Stadium.
Mel Allen just announced that Babe Ruth was coming, and there was a tremendous roar.
Coming up the stairs, he was shaky, and he was dying of throat cancer.
He says, somebody better give me a bat to lean on because I just can't stand on my feet.
And Eddie Robinson, our first baseman, grabbed the bat, gave it to Babe to use to steady himself as he walked to home plate. He stood up there, took his cap off, and he played the national anthem. That was my bat. I always use a Babe Ruth model.
Babe Ruth died 2 months later, on August 16, 1948, at the age of 53. The baseball world mourned the man who had brought so much life to the ballpark. Hundreds of thousands of people paid their final respects at the wake at Yankee Stadium and on the procession route the day of the funeral. As a Ruth biographer later wrote, his memory will last in this country till memory be dead. Hawthorne, New York, Gate of Heaven Cemetery. Youth League coach Ross Glatzer periodically takes his team from Somers, New York, for pilgrimages to Babe Ruth's grave. The Ruth legacy is passed on.
Here's this character coming out and saying, this is what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to point to the stands. And that's what he did, by the way, on the third strike. After 2 strikes, he pointed to the center field stands.
And he hit it there?
And boom, that's where he hit it. Tell me something else about Babe Ruth.
He hit 50 home runs four times.
Even though Jacob Ruppert named Yankee Stadium after his team, what did the sports writers call Yankee Stadium?
The house that Ruth built.
That's right, Chris. The house that Ruth built. So here was a person that was absolutely bigger than his sport. He was actually bigger than life.
Hey, listen, you fellas need a ball player?
You mean you want to play?
I play ball.
What's your name?
Babe Ruth.
I want you to meet Pepper Martin.
Hello, Pepper. How are you?
And this fella's Napoleon.
Oh, Napoleon South.
Yeah, but I'm awfully sorry. I can't use it.
In his day and to this day, Babe Ruth symbolized youthful exuberance. This king of a kid's game was a kindred spirit for children, perhaps in part because he never really grew up, and his legend never really grows old. I'm Joe Don Baker for Outside the Lines. Thanks for joining us.